Hey, hey, hey. So I haven't done one of these in a really long time, but here is what I'm thinking. Um, I announced that I was going to do I haven't done a finance fireside chat in a long time. And so I'm thinking I'm just going to be here. I'm not going to be before you long, only going to be about 30 minutes or so. But I did want to talk about little things that seem to be irking me a little more than normal when it comes to women and money and conversations that we're either having privately amongst our friends or colleagues or publicly in social media forums. So, um, so if anybody doesn't know who I am, let me give you a let me give you a an idea of who I am. So I'm Audrey Godwin. I have had a career of 20 years as a CPA and a chief financial officer. And I apologize that the dog now seems to be wanting to do all his chatting and playing with his toys right at this moment. So back to why do I have the right to talk about this subject outside of the fact that I'm a woman? So the reason why is I've had a 20 plus year career as a CPA and a CFO, meaning that I have worked in companies with clients, I have worked in companies as an employee. And when it comes to women and money, especially in the consulting space and financial services space, what's really happening is that we're having these conversations about um, crossing seven figures or getting to eight figures. But the thing that is annoying me the most is that I have yet to hear any person in 20 years talk about how much they are personally taking home when they cross these thresholds. Now, why do I say that? I say that because um, I've had clients who have been their business has earned seven figures in revenue, but their salary was $75,000. And in having conversations around why they're only earning $75,000, it was one, they wanted to make sure they always made payroll, but two, they were more interested in telling everybody they had a seven-figure business than increasing their income. Yet for $75,000 a year, she was stressing about payroll and her shipment of products coming from China and making sure that she wasn't losing contracts. So she had quite a bit more stress and things to deal with that was definitely above a $75,000 pay grade. So I keep seeing all this advertising. I keep hearing all the stats, and these are not new, right? Like, so we can go back, I don't know, easily 15, 20 years when I'm, and look at these American Express women in business studies where, it's still after all this time, only 2% of women who own businesses are crossing the $1 million threshold. But what they fail to tell you is that a lot of those businesses are earning less than $20,000. So they're including direct salespeople, multi-level marketing. There's a hybrid between people that are providing services and those that are providing products. Those that are doing one-on-one consulting and those that are actually generating, having corporate or enterprise level or governmental clients where they may get $1 million client contract, but that's over 3 years. And so if we're going to talk about transparency when it comes to money, then let's not just talk about how we get to $1 million or how we get to $500,000. Because I've had clients literally making $750,000 in their business and taking home personally $300,000. Making $1 million, taking home $300,000 as their personal between their personal salary. Gotta love the dog in the background. So, here's why I bring this up, right? If we're gonna talk about um, women doing better financially, then we need to be willing to talk about what we're making, not just what the business is making. And I am excited that more and more women are deciding to, cross the $1 million mark. So they sell $1 million, but they got $700,000 in cash. Great. What does that look like? Right. I think the other piece for me is, you know, I know only because I've heard it in whispers and conversations that, we're told never to compare ourselves to somebody else, mind somebody else, don't mind somebody else's business, mind your own wallet, all that stuff, right? But when you see somebody talking about they have a $3 million business and they're in a professional service space, it's like, okay, so are you dealing with a fixed number of clients? So maybe you have 250 clients and you're providing services and it gets you to the $1 million mark. Great. That means you also have a team that helps you service that client. Are you doing, coaching programs where, your price point is high, so you don't need a large team and you don't need a lot of clients to make your numbers? That's great. But what about the clients that I know, the women that I know that are doing great work and they're working with corporations or they're working with governments? Uh, they may get $1.5 million contract, but that's not going to be cash in the bank right away. And more than likely, that's a contract that is longer than a year. And so I want us to be honest about when we're looking at how people are, celebrating their wins, to understand that some people have brand deals, some people are, doing consulting or providing services. Some people, the hardest companies to reach the $1 million mark, unless something goes super viral or you end up on Oprah, is when you have product, because that's a volume game, right? So in order for you to reach $1 million, if you're selling a product, you have to sell a certain number of units. And then you have to make sure you price it right so that not only can you run your business and pay your payroll or pay your contractors, but you have to be able to take a decent salary as well. So I would love for us to have more conversation around what we are actually taking home from our businesses or even our jobs, right? How many of us are, in great careers in these companies? Talk about what you're making and how you're spending and how you're being generous and how you're saving for retirement or how you're saving for a house or whatever or you're living, you're getting your vacation, whatever that looks like. So I I feel like I've said this a few times, but I really want us to be clear that when we're talking about women making more money because they tend to be more charitable, even though their gifts might not be large like a male's maybe, but they are consistent in their charitable giving. So when a woman is a great steward of her money, she makes she enriches the lives of everyone around her, from her household, from herself to her household to her community. There is always a woman using what she makes and how she stewards her money for charitable purposes, for understanding that part of her legacy, not just she's going to leave for those that she loves as an inheritance, but her legacy is the behavior she embodies as she is taking more money personally so that she can be generous. She can take care of herself, her family. And if you don't have family, whoever you choose is family, but each and every woman on the planet influences a sphere of people. So, how do you make your sphere of influence more well rounded? It's really about being honest about money. It's, hey, I'm struggling or I'm on a budget. But I really do believe that if more of us were honest or just transparent, we talk about pay transparency for companies. So when they post jobs, we want to know what the the compensation for the role is not just the salary, but benefits and all of those things. We want to have pay transparency. I've encouraged clients in the past to do research on the role that they want to take, they want to apply for, to make sure that they know what's a reasonable range. And most of the time, I will, encourage them to go to the higher end of the range, but to have a number that they can't go below, because if they are below that number, they're going to resent it. Meaning, let's say we are going for a lead supervisor position, and let's say the role, or we'll just say marketing strategist, right? And so let's say that role pays, anywhere, national average, right, pays anywhere from $150,000 a year to $175,000 a year. Usually what I say is, what's the minimum? What's the number that you need to take home so that you don't resent going to work every day? That might be $165,000. So you ask for 175 and you go through negotiation, or you can go for 180 and work your way down to 165, but know that you have to have that number in place. Same thing when you're negotiating contracts for your business, right? You want to make sure that if you're going after this $1 million contract, how much of that contract, one, are you going to be participating in, but two, how much fund your own salaries? I think it's important. I think that, and then when we go to help other women in, helping them write the grants, or helping them apply for incubators or accelerators, to really understand that, hey, if you're going to make $1 million, you want to make $1 million, you should at least be trying to make 200, a six-figure salary for this $1 million business. Now, there's a caveat, right? If we are a startup, we may be bootstrapping it, or we may be in a relationship where we don't have to worry about meeting our bills, paying for our lifestyle, because we have a life partner who's handling that for us as we build this company. But I do want to make sure that as you grow that company, that at some point in time, your budget includes your salary. So women and money transparency really comes down to, if my company is making $1 million, how much of that is coming to me? And if I'm making less than six figures, I need to evaluate why I'm making less than six figures if my revenue is $1 million. I want us to stop listening to, the financials, all the statistics that say, hey, most companies don't get to $1 million. Well, let's say you want to provide services and $750,000 in gross revenue gets you to the salary that you want. So you don't cross the $1 million threshold, but you still have a good salary. You are funding the lifestyle that you want. You are being generous in your community. You are doing those things that are meaningful and important to you. You're saving for retirement. You're doing all the things. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have $1 million company. You can leave an inheritance for your kids and for your communities and for the causes that you love over time. Here's an example. I want to say this is about like 10, 15 years ago. No longer than that, maybe 20 years ago. I had a friend of mine who was part of Rotary in a town that I lived in back in Washington State. And she was just telling me the good news that they had received $1 million endowment from a retired Boeing engineer. Now, this guy worked his entire career, but had been saving money so that he could leave a scholarship endowment for the Rotary Club to give out scholarships for students who were going into engineering. So you can do things over time, but what really matters is whether you have a W-2 job and you're working 9 to 5, or you can still have a W-2 job if you own your own business, because you're taking a salary out of your business. But either way, whether you're leading inside a company or leading your own company, or doing freelance work, consulting or contracting, whatever kind of work it is, what we really need to be honest about is not just how much time it takes to get to whatever that threshold is important. It's to have the rest of the conversation of how long does it take you to get profitable, and then are you actually taking home the salary that you think you should be taking? And I'm not talking, hey, I want a $500,000 salary, but I'm only making $750,000. Now, if that works for your business model, fantastic. But what I really want us to do as women, if I don't even want us to talk about that 2% of businesses that make the $1 million mark, I want to talk about women who are making two, three, four, $500,000 in their business and taking home six figures. Now, you may not take home six figures when you make your first 100,000. You may be making 30, 40, $50,000 if you're a service-based business. But as you grow, the expectation is that you should be making a very good salary based on how you're growing your business and based on your priorities. So when you're being asked about how you're growing your business, don't be afraid to talk about how you didn't take a salary maybe for until you hit $250,000, and that's when you took your first fixed six-figure salary. Maybe you talk about how you got a $500,000 contract, and part of what was rolled into that contract was your salary of six figures. And I'm going to keep saying that because what I have seen in my career and have seen around in circles is people are not, women particularly, are not paying themselves. They're not paying themselves at all, or paying themselves very little. And then they're exhausted when they hit 750, 850, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, because they're making sure everyone else gets paid. But really, they need to be making a good solid six figures by the time they get to their first $1 million. So when we're talking about women and money transparency, that's what I'm talking about. Let's talk about, it's great. Let's get to $1 million gross revenue, but let's get to $300,000, get to $400,000 for compensation coming to you personally, so that you can do the other things that you want to do in your life besides grow this business. The vacations, the homes, the paying off debt, whatever it is that you're setting up for your for future inheritance, for future people that are going to inherit from you. Those are the things that we want to do. Because I can't tell you year after year after year whether I'm watching cohorts of brand new business owners, to even those that have been in business for a while, 5 or 6 years or more, who are still struggling to take home money financially because they're leaving everything in their business and they're growing their business and not really talking about that, or maybe they have a husband or a life partner who is taking care of all the bills, so they don't have to take home a salary from their business. But we need to be honest about that's the situation that you're in, that you're not taking a salary because you don't need to take a salary. You can actually put every dollar back into the business and grow the business. But if that's not you, here's what I would say is that when people are telling you and the other piece is that you may be helping people grow their gross income, but nobody's asking the question of how long did it take you to get profitable, and how long did it take you to make your first six-figure salary out of your business. Those are the questions, those are the additional questions we need to ask instead of just pursuing the 7, 8, 9 figures. It's how do I bring home a really good living so that I continue to make my financial goals as I grow my business or as I advance my career? These conversations around what we're earning and how we're managing it, that's where the meat is. That's where the wisdom exchange happens among women, is we can really help each other by just going, hey, did you know that if you put into a Roth 401k, you can put more money in? Yeah, it's not going to be pre-tax, but that also means that at 70 and a half, you don't have to take that money out. Whereas if you do it in a regular 401k, at 70 and a half, you take the money out. And yes, it is pre-tax, but eventually you'll pay tax on it. Or And I had that from a young lady who started a job at Amazon, and she's like, I'm making a high, a decent 6-figure salary, and I'm the first in my family to do so. I said, great. Figure out what your living expenses are for the life that you want to live. That not how can I just be so frugal that I'm just got money stacked away, but we want to have living expenses put together. We want to be able to put away for savings, make sure we have for vacations. We talked about how she was going to use her credit cards and we talked about whether or not she was going to be preparing to, put money away for a down payment on the house, that we didn't need to sit it in a savings account. It could be in a high yield savings. We could move it to an investment account. It's all the variety of things. And then, she asked me, how could she help her nieces and nephews learn? It's like, it's simple. I started with my kids with 3 mason jars, give, save, and spend. And I gave them money so that they can manage it. That wasn't attached to their chores. As I grew my first business, I talked all the time with younger people about how much I was making in my business. What was my salary? Here's what I was making. They were surprised I was open with it. They needed to know that it's like, yeah, I own my own business and I make this salary, but I'm also responsible for 100% of the decisions and the results I get from me and my team. So I'm just going to do a bit of a recap, because I think that when we're talking about being transparent, and as we continue to celebrate other women as they're crossing that $1 million mark, or they're finally getting some traction on their programs and they're finally doing the things that they really love to do, we also need to be honest about the salary that we're taking home. How much money, cash flow, is coming out of that business into your household? So that it's not just, hey, here's the struggle to get to $1 million. It's, here's what it took for me to get to the place where I can take $300,000 out of my business, whether it's salary or distributions or however it's situated, but to really get to a place where you can have a really good salary based on the business that you have or the career that you're in, and then we're just honest about it, right? Got that $1 million deal? Great. Make sure that you have more than enough for your salary. And then let's be honest about how long it took you to get to that level of salary. I think this is the place, this is the area we're not talking enough about. We're not talking about our salaries, our personal compensation. We're only talking about how our businesses went to multi-million dollars or multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, and not anybody is talking about what they're making. So these are conversations we actually have in our Position for Profit experience and our Position for Profit lab, because ultimately, I want to be able to lead a movement of women who are part of the whole soul finance movement, where we talk about everything openly and honestly, and from a place of wanting us all to rise and all of us to go further than the last one did. I think this is really important that we have these conversations. Yes, I want to have a multi-million dollar business. Okay, let's be clear. I plan on growing the business that I'm building right now so that I can ultimately sell it, but I will still have licensing rights. All right, so I've already figured out the structure, and I'm not making any compensation right now because I took a full-time job so I can focus on building this, because that's how my brain, I don't have the emotional bandwidth, and I don't use poverty as a motivation or a mindset, right? Using poverty as a motivation, like, I don't want to be broke, so I'm just going to work really hard to grow this business so that I can have a 7-figure business, but I'm still making $50,000 a year. Yeah, no, sir, that's not for me. That's not my thing. That's not my thing. So I'm making a 6-figure salary, working for a company and building the financial education that most women need so that they can build their soul set and their skill set. And so when somebody says, how did you make this company work, and what does it look like financially, you can say, you know what, my company grosses $750,000 a year. I take a salary of $250,000. I have this great team that I pay, and we've been profitable since year 2. That's what I want to hear more women talking about. And it doesn't have to be like in public. It can be with your girlfriends, especially when you see them struggling. Ask them what's going on. Ask them what's happening. I mean, ask them. If they don't want to share with you, that's their choice, but be the one that says, hey, how's your business doing financially? Are you getting what you need from your business outside of the satisfaction that you are doing most excellent work in the world? I love passion, I love purpose, but I like profit. And I like to be able to think that I am embodying those behaviors that allow other women to have the permission to go, yeah, I can have a 6-figure salary from my own business. I don't have to scrape by. And there might be times where it's a little close, but it's not always going to be that way. And when we go to mentor or talk to somebody else, we always want to make sure that we talk about our own compensation in the midst of lifting someone else as they're going forward. So, okay, I ranted. I'm good. I'm really good. I appreciate you checking in and watching this, but I really felt like I'm just done not hearing women talk about what they make from their business, not how much their business makes, because that also adds to the comparison trap. And for those of us who have done our soul work, I celebrate everybody. And because of my skill set, the next question I ask is, how profitable are you? And how much are you taking home? Because for me, having a vastly financially successful business and you're not taking home a really wildly comfortable salary compensation from your business, that's you not taking your business. That's not you not taking your business seriously. That's you not taking yourself seriously. You not valuing your own contribution to your own company. So this is the end of my rant. I want more women, if they want to, cross the $1 million mark. But I want them to do it in a way that compensates them well so that they're not waiting until they sell their business to enjoy the fruits of their labor. They can do it every month when they get cash or salary out of their business. So I'll meet you on the next. Clearly, the dog is thinking that it's time for me to go. So we will see you on the fireside chat. We're definitely going to do this more often. If there are subjects for me to chat about or write about, whichever way, just let me know in the comments. Thanks, and I'll talk to you the next time we chat.